Hi, this is Frid from the Joy of Syntax and English in Color. Finally, here's another YouTube video, and this video is mainly for the audience who wants to learn German as a foreign language. One of my viewers requested a video in which I explain certain fricative sounds that are related to German R sounds. I made 2 R videos in the past. And I'm finding that it's a very complex topic, and I might make another R video. And I will talk about the German R a little bit in this video as well. So I thought this would be quickly done, but I actually spent quite a bit of time thinking about this. I'm a native German speaker. I lived in the States for a long time. My main passion is actually English. I have been studying English for many years, and I've been teaching it, and I've been writing books about it and teaching online courses and group events and what have you. But then 3 years ago, I coincidentally started teaching German as a foreign language because a friend of mine needed some help. And the friend of mine is an immigrant from Mexico, and we have become very, very good friends. Yeah, and so this started my journey exploring my mother tongue, with which I've had a very difficult relationship, actually. Whenever I teach pronunciation, well, first off, let me say pronunciation is the gateway to any language, and I talk about why that is so in other videos. So that's one important thing. And when you study English, there are all these great online dictionaries that help you with pronunciation. But for German, it's not so easy to find. Now, luckily, Wiktionary helps you quite a bit. We say Wiktionary in German. Wiktionary, I don't know how you say it in German, but anyway, the germ in German, the W is V instead of W. And sometimes I find it difficult when I'm speaking English, but I'm speaking about German, then I can so easily slip into some German stuff and the other way around. Anyway, so Wiktionary offers some pronunciation help, but all the other great dictionaries like Duden usually don't. And the reason probably is that there is not such an agreement on what the standard is. There is a artificial standard German. It's the bureaucratic language, or the language for administrative and political reasons, and that standard is shared among all the German regions with all these different dialects and accents, and then the German of Austria and Switzerland and Luxembourg and Liechtenstein. And so because all, there are so many different pronunciations of Standard German in Germany itself, and then we have Standard Austrian and Standard Swiss, etc., etc. We can agree on a written language, but not on the spoken language, and so people shy away from teaching pronunciation. But we have to start somewhere, and so I've decided to share with people how I pronounce words, not because I speak perfect German, but I speak a very decent high German. My parents come from Göttingen, which claims to have the best standard German. People from Hanover claim the same for their language, but the language from Hanover and Göttingen is pretty similar to my ears. I was born in Hamburg, and I had some friends there, but then when I was 5, we moved to Aachen, which is in the Rhineland. Now, people from Göttingen claim that I have a horrid Rhinelandish accent. People from the Rhineland still consider me a foreigner. So anyway, but the reason why I use me as a model is that every German-speaking person that I've ever met was able to understand me without any problems. Now, there were some German speakers whom I couldn't understand, or where I had difficulty understanding them. But since everybody who speaks German can understand me, and my German is very close to a standard high German, I simply share with people how I say things, and then I alert them to the fact that there are many other options, and I often offer other options. Yeah, anyway, I feel I need to preface many of my pronunciation videos with this caveat. Yeah, because pronunciation is tricky, and yet it is so important, and we need to start somewhere. Language is primarily spoken. We sometimes forget that because in the teaching world, written language plays such a big role. But spoken language is what we encounter as babies, as embryos and babies. And when we learn through spoken language, we actually learn intuitively and we learn more deeply. Yeah, okay, let's start. I'll share my screen and I will start tackling this very difficult issue. And I might make another video about it. And if you need further help, contact me. It's tricky, and I'm not saying that to scare you, but to actually encourage you to not freak out. I'll just share what I can, and then we'll take it from there, shall we? Okay, here I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so we're going to talk about the following 3 fricative sounds, as in Specht, and then Buch and Loch. And then we're going to juxtapose them with 3 different R sounds. Okay, here we go. The fricatives first. Now, for those of you who know me, you will know that I have assigned a nice image to every sound that German has. And the idea is that we anchor in the sound with the word and the image. And so we get an intuitive and an emotional and an auditory relationship with the sound in the context of a word. So this woodpecker, this cute bird, represents the sound h, and the woodpecker is der Specht. Specht. Now, what you do is you actually press the side of both sides of your tongue up against the inner rim of your upper teeth. So the air, when you actually suck in the air, so you actually, you make the space, the available space for the airflow to escape out through quite small. And actually when you suck in the air, you can feel that the air brushes up against your palate and the tongue. So try it. Ich Specht. And I'll give you a few other words in a minute. Not too many because we want to focus on the sound. Specht, der Specht. We'll practice it in a minute. Now the next sound is a velar sound. So actually the Specht sound is a sort of palatal sound. It's happening, the happening place is in the palate. Hang on a second, I need to pause the video. Okay, I'm back. Now I have to find my train of thought. Okay, so Specht. Moving on to the next sound. Buch. All 3 fricatives are voiceless. I talk about that in another video. Voiced sounds are produced with your vocal cords touching and buzzing. Those are d, 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 g. Those are voiced sounds. When you place your hand on your larynx and you say you will feel the buzzing sound, and that's a voiced sound. And when you have a voiceless sound, the glottis opens up, the vocal cords don't touch, and then the air escapes with the sort of hissing sound. And so we have k, t, p. Those are voiceless sounds. And when you sing, voiceless sounds are still devoiced. And so the 3 fricatives that I'm discussing right now are voiceless fricatives. So this fricative is a sort of palatal fricative, and this is a velar fricative. You know, the velum is the soft part of your palate, and and the as in the Buch, it's the velum, so the back of the tongue and the velum come together. Buch, Buch. G. It's sort of the place where you would say a G, a G, G, G. Like in the English word go, go, go. Or the German word geh, gehen, G, G. Say G, 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 G. And then you have Buch. That's the place roughly where the velum and the back of the tongue meet to create a voiceless friction sound. Buch, 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 Buch. And the plural Bücher doesn't have that sound. That has the Specht sound again. So Buch. Now in this, the word Loch, we also have, we actually have a pre-uvular or a velar fricative that's, yeah, a pre-uvular fricative basically. Uvula is the little bitty thing that's attached to the velum. Buch and Loch. So when you actually, when you open up your mouth to say oh, you cannot produce the sound because the part of the velum in the back of the tongue don't meet at such a, they don't come together when you have a more open vowel. Oh. And so what happens when you open up your mouth more, the place where the velum or the pre-uvular area and the back of the tongue meet are further back, is further back in the mouth. So it's Loch. Listen to it. Those are your three sounds. Specht, Buch, Loch. Okay, so Specht, there are some more words that have the same sound. The pronoun, the first person pronoun I, has the same sound, ich. And I'll say something about that in a minute. I'll show you a map, and then you can see where in Germany roughly people say ich and not some other dialect form. But anyway, and I come from a city where some people say ich and some people say ish. Ich is standard High German. Ich. Specht, ich. Then not is nicht. Light is Licht. And then chemistry is Chemie. And I'll say something about that in a minute as well. Specht, ich nicht, Licht, Chemie. Ich nicht, Licht, Chemie. Das Buch, it's the same as in suchen or cake is Kuchen. I didn't have that much space here, so I didn't put it here. Huch is an expression of fright or something like that. Huch, what's there? Oh my God, like suchen, huch, Kuchen, Buchen. Yeah, I can provide more examples if you need that. Anyway, right now we'll just compare these words. And then Loch, and we have Dach, Acht, Lachen. Dach, the roof, Acht, 8, and Lachen, laugh. And just in case you're interested, we can say Lachen or Lachen or Lachen. So there are various ways of assimilating the sounds, but that's the stuff for another video. Okay, now look at this map of Germany. Where you see the green circle, that's where people tend to say ich. Where you see the purple circle or dot, that's where people tend to say ish. And you see here in the area, there's an ish area. That's close to Aachen, ish. There we have a certain, not all of people in Aachen, all of the people in Aachen say ish, but a number do. Then there is, some people say ech, some people say I, ik, ek, so whatever. But you see, those are different regions, yeah, around Berlin, people say ik. Yeah, and then southern is I, Iosni. I can't speak that, but anyway, they say I. Okay, and now look at this map. Some people don't say Chemie. In the south of Germany, some people say Chemie, and so in some areas they say Chemie. And then I don't even know what that little sign is, but anyway, and I don't know all these different sounds that people use instead of. I basically know Chemie, Chemie, and Chemie. That's Chemie, I've heard a lot, but I always say Chemie, and that's what I consider standard German. And if you go to this website, you will also see this table here where they compare words Chemie, China, Chirurg. And I actually don't pronounce the R. I say Chirurg or Chirurg, and Cheops, from Egypt. There's the Cheops pyramid. And you can then press on the button and get a sound sample just to show you there are all these different pronunciation options, but standard German is, in my opinion, Chemie. So you can see all these fun atlases that help you with German dialects. Okay, back to the matter at hand. Here are 3 little sentences to help you practice each fricative. The Buch, the Specht sound is nicht schlecht, Herr Specht. And that's the saying that you can use when you want to express that you're content with how someone did something, or you like something. When something is good or somebody did a good job, when you want to say, well done you can say nicht schlecht, Herr Specht. And that's also typical, you know, in America, people tend to be very positive and say, oh, this is great, fantastic, awesome. And then Germany, people are often a bit subdued, just like the Brits. And, you know, like when a Brit says not bad, an American will say, oh my God, it's fantastic. And a German will say, nicht schlecht, Herr Specht. So it's a bit more toned down. I actually love the exuberant American way, but anyway, nicht schlecht, Herr Specht. Nicht schlecht, Herr Specht. And remember the R, I don't pronounce the R's in Herr. Herr, I have a deep schwa there. Nicht schlecht, Herr Specht. Herr Specht. Heute gibt es Kuchen, den wollen wir versuchen. That's the Buch sound. Buch, Kuchen, versuchen. Heute gibt es Kuchen, den wollen wir versuchen. Versuchen means to try, and it means to try to do something, but also to taste something, to taste and see whether something is good. And Loch an Loch und hält doch. That's an old, what do you say? You know how when you sometimes have these I can't think of the word right now. I'm having a blackout. Hang on. Okay, now I know what I wanted to say. A riddle. So it's an old riddle, and it means a chain or like a net where you have all these holes next to each other, but you still have something that's holding up. So Loch an Loch und hält doch. Okay, so there is one hole next to another and still the whole thing sticks together, or is stable. Loch an Loch und hält doch. Okay, you can practice that. Now, before we move on to the R sounds that are related to these fricatives, or 2 of them, There are some words where you have a distribution of fricatives and plosives. For example, these three words, richtig, wichtig, and der König, they, in standard German, they are spelled with a G, and the letter G often represents a voiced or voiceless plosive. However, in these three words, standard German, the IG represents an I Specht sound, the richtig, richtig, wichtig, König. However, some people use plosives instead, and because those are in final position, we have final obstruent devoicing, and so it's richtig, wichtig, König. Remember, German has final obstruent devoicing. That means that consonants that are in final position are always pronounced without voice, regardless of whether they can be voiced or not in other positions. So yeah, it's a video for a different time. But anyway, here, just know that we have these two options. Standard German is richtig, and then some people say richtig. Wichtig, wichtig. König, König. And then with the following words, it's the other way around. Standard German uses a voiceless plosive in final position, but there are in the north and in Lower Saxony, for instance, where my parents are from, people tend to use a velar, a palatal or velar fricative instead. For instance, the path is der Weg. But my husband, for instance, who is from Lower Saxony, often I as well say Weg. I actually sometimes say Weg and sometimes Weg. And I haven't quite figured out when I say which, but I think it depends on who I'm talking to. Der Weg, der Weg. And then away, like get off or go, I'm going away, ich gehe weg. I say usually weg, but sometimes I say weg, weg, weg. And this is very tricky as well. These words are spelled the same, but the path is a noun, so it's capitalized. Weg is an adverb, so it's lower, it has a lowercase letter. But they have different vowel sounds, even though they are spelled the same, which is quite tricky. Der Weg, 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 weg. Geh mal weg, geh mal weg, geh mal weg. Okay. And we have Betrug, and some people say Betrug. And when you say Betrug, when you use the pre-uvular fricative, then the U sound gets shortened. Betrug. Genug, genug. Okay, I'll read them again. Richtig, richtig. Wichtig, wichtig. König, König. Weg, Weg. Weg, weg. Betrug, Betrug. Genug, genug. Okay, now let's juxtapose the three fricatives that are always voiceless with the German R sound. And in my pronunciation book and on the other YouTube videos, I usually use this symbol to represent all R sounds. But of course, as I discuss in the second R video, the R can be either a fricative or the letter R can represent either a fricative or an approximant. Approximants are voiced, but fricatives can be voiceless or voiced. And we find both voiced and voiceless fricatives and approximants when the letter R occurs. So I'll give you examples. So now let's see there is no palatal R. So the Specht sound doesn't have a corresponding R sound, but the Buch and the Loch sound have corresponding R sounds. Now, Buch And then there is the R sound in riechen. And in riechen, you have two options. You can have a voiced or voiceless fricative, or you can have an approximant, darin, 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 darin. And it can be sort of a mixture. And I use all three. So you will hear me say riechen sometimes, or riechen, and darin oder darin, darin can be can be an approximant. So when I sing, I will definitely use the voiced versions. I'll just be silly. Okay, say, das Buch riecht gut, riechen, riechen, darin, 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 riechen. And when you sing these words and you place your hand on your larynx, then you will notice that Buch, you have to stop the voice even though you're singing for the sound, the Buch sound. But for riechen, even though you can devoice it, and then it can sound like the Buch riechen, then it can be very similar. You can actually keep it voiced. Don't get stressed out over this, please. Just notice it, be curious about it, watch the video again, and then listen to different speakers and be amazed that there are more options than I am offering here. Also, das Buch riechen oder riechen. Darin, 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 darin. Loch, roch. Now this is fun. Roch, roch. You can actually you can pronounce the R like this sound, but you don't have to. It can be voiced, and it can also be devoiced, but softer than the Loch. You can say Loch, roch, 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 but you can also say roch, roch, roch. And we can do the singing test again. Das Loch, das Loch, das Loch, das Loch. Das Loch ist groß, doch da ist ein Loch. You see, for Loch, I have to interrupt the voicing. But I can say, roch, roch, roch. For the I have to stop the voice again, but roch. The R is not pronounced. It's a deep schwa. Roch. And I can voice that. Der Geruch. Again, I can have that voiced or voiceless. Der, the R is not pronounced. It becomes a deep schwa. If you are confused by that, go to my other two videos on the R. Der Geruch oder Geruch oder Geruch. So some people will say Geruch. Some say Geruch. Both options are there. And now I usually don't use this symbol for the R sound that is velar. And I always use this sound because the two R's are not so far apart, right? So that we have riechen and roch. So the riechen sort of happens with the g happens, and the Buch happens, and the roch happens sort of where the Loch happens. Loch, roch, roch. But the Loch can never be voiced, and the roch can be voiced or voiceless, or a mixture of the two. You start without voice and then you move into voice. And some people also have a uvular R, roch, but I don't. And some people, of course, have a trilled R, roch. I don't, and it's not standard. Okay, roch, der Geruch. And then Dach, Rache oder Rache. Rache, Rache. It can be voiced, it can be voiceless. And then here we sometimes have an approximant and sometimes not. Some people say orange, some say orange. That's a different story. It's a borrowed word from French, and in French we have the nasal vowels, and in German we don't, only in those words borrowed from French. Orange, orange, and then you can say oh. You can have a voiceless sound or a voiceless sound or a sort of an approximant. Orange. Okay, it's tricky. Again, try not to get stressed out over it. Just listen to it, take it in, and try to enjoy it. Okay, here I'm trying to support you with pictures and photos. Buch, and the sound, this is always the voiceless sound, the velar fricative, Buch. And the R that you have in re is pronounced in the same location, re, and in my book I used the different symbol, remember, but I used it here as a reminder that it's the R it's the R that's closer to the hard palate. Re, re or re. Then Rabe, that's the same location. The R is pronounced in the same location where you pronounce the Loch fricative. Loch, Rabe. And Truthahn, Turkey, you use that when you have the R in the consonant cluster in the second part, like tr, as in Truthahn and treten, then the R is voiceless. Truthahn, Truthahn, Truthahn. Loch, Truthahn, Loch, Truthahn. So voiced or voiceless, and voiceless. And this picture is from Instagram. There's a very nice account. It's called Minnow and Blossom, and the lady who runs it is called Abby, and she gave me permission to use this beautiful picture of her turkey Rosie. So thank you, Abby. Okay, here I am giving you the 3 R's again. So we have either re or re or re, 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 re or re. Rabe, 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 Rabe. Either one. And then Truthahn, Truthahn, Truthahn. And the words darin, Kokolores und Orange are more often voiced than not, but they can be voiceless. Okay, here is a very famous children's song. There are 2 versions of this, and there's one with several stanzas, and then the first stanza is longer than this one, and then this is the short version. I actually forgot how the melody goes. What I highlighted here with pink are the sounds, the letters that represent voiceless sounds. Rira rutsch, rira rutsch, rira rutsch. Wir fahren mit der Kutsch. Sorry, I'm a little bit hoarse. Rira rutsch, wir fahren mit der Kutsch. Mit der. And we can actually swallow the T. That means we release it into the D, and then the D gets devoiced. Mit der becomes mit der Kutsch. Wir fahren mit der Eisenbahn Ri, Ra, Rutsch. Ri like Re, Ra like Rabe, and Ru like Truthahn. So we have a song where kids actually practice pronunciation. Yeah, that's a common thing, that actually children's verses and rhymes and songs are opportunities for kids to not only learn words, but to also practice pronunciation. Yeah, and there's a very famous song, children's song. I sang that a lot when I was a little kid, and I heard, yeah, I listened to a record on which this song was featured. Jetzt trat ich heute vor die Türe, Sapperlot, was sah ich da? Tanzte doch die ganz Agathe mit dem Truthahn Cha-Cha-Cha. I'll give you a link to the song. And then you can, when you sing the first part, then you will feel that treten and Truthahn actually have the voiceless versions of the R. Trat ich heute vor die Türe, Sapperlot, was sah ich da? Tanzte doch die ganze Agathe mit dem Truthahn, Cha-Cha-Cha, Cha-Cha-Cha. So try this and see whether you can get your voice to hum for many of the sounds, but not for treten and Truthahn. Okay, that's it. I hope that this has helped you. Yeah, have fun practicing. It has become actually darker here in the room, but I hope that you were able to see my lips, and I hope that you had fun watching this. And if you have any questions, pop them in the comments below or write me an email, and I am happy to help you out. Happy practicing, and don't despair. This is supposed to be fun. Much love from Frid, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, and share this with your friends if you liked it. And I also always enjoy if you give me a thumbs up. Bye-bye. Take good care.